I'll put the link in the chat if anyone wants to share it. All right, my dog's barking now, but we're live. So I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. I put the link in the chat for those that want it. So if you want to send it out to your networks, feel free. Chico, if you don't mind putting it in a couple group chats, or sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, buddy. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with this Meet Confer session. It is Monday, April 19th. It's about 4:19 on 4:19, so we'll go ahead and get started. Quick introductions. I'm Jay Barbuto, co-president of PECTA, and I am the co-chair of Meet and Confer.
Marnie Burris, PECTA secretary, Meet and Confer co-chair, and third grade teacher at Lowell Elementary.
Diana Antone, sixth grade math and science at Lowell Elementary.
Karen Merkley, general and choral music at Capitol Elementary.
Felina's driving right now, so she might not be able to speak, which is okay. She's on her way home. So Chico, you're up.
Chico Robinson, 7th and 8th middle school, and PECTA vice president.
On the administrative side, I'm Vic Diaz. I'm the Director of Human Resources.
Sylvia Bernal, principal at Garfield.
Gina Millsaps, proud principal at Paul Lawrence Dunbar.
Rick Homestead, principal at Capitol Elementary School.
All right, perfect. I think that's everyone. So let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Safari, there you go. Can you all see that? Yes? Okay, present. So we're here in session 4. We are going to be discussing 2 topics today. The first thing we're going to talk about is proposal number 5, which is blackout days. We'll get more into specifics about that during the proposal. Step number 3 will be proposal number 9, which will be PECTA representation at governing board meetings. And then we'll go into scheduling for next week and then some deadlines. So Dr. Diaz or the administration team, do you guys have any questions about any of that?
No, sounds clear.
Cool. Sounds good. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started with proposal number 5. And I'm glad the principals are here for this one because this is definitely one that's right up their alley. So the original, sorry, we did that already. Proposal number 5, blackout days. So I'm going to just read the language for those of you that are watching at home. Beginning with the 2021-2022 school year, 1 day a week will be considered a blackout day where no meetings will be scheduled and educators will be given uninterrupted prep time. Events that are not allowed to take place in these days include, but are not limited to, IEPs, PLC, the alphabet soup, right? So we kind of wanted to discuss this one for a couple reasons. One, this is not us saying that we don't want to do our jobs, that we, this is just saying that we're busy. We are busy all the time. There are things going on where it just feels like every day it's a meeting here, a meeting there. And we just want 1 day a week to be able to kind of just flesh everything out and use as proper planning time. So an example here, just to lay it out, if Mr. Barbuto had an MTSS meeting on Monday, an IEP meeting on Tuesday and Wednesday, PBIS on Friday, then he has lost all of his prep time. It's Thursday should be on there too. If Mr. Barbuto was given 1 day a week where no meetings could be scheduled, then he could dedicate the time to exceptional instructional planning, which is what is best for our students too, as well as having these meetings. Now, if you notice, we didn't put a day on this proposal because we wanted to allow for some flexibility for principals. So if, for Mrs. Bernal, if it works best for Thursdays to have that day, then Thursday is the best day. But for Ms. Millsaps, if it's Tuesday, then it's Tuesday. When we did our survey and we kind of looked at some data here too, teachers have listed a lack of planning time as a reason for leaving the profession and as a barrier to successful implementation of curricular reforms or evidence-based practices. And kind of just looking at this one kind of from the top down, the main point of this one is to allow for educators to get some work done inside of contracted hours, right? It's not that we're saying that there's going to be times where we get pulled away during days, but we just want 1 day a week to be, hey, this day is prep time. This day is your day. We will not interrupt you. I mean, do emergencies happen? Yes, we understand that emergencies happen, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, we want to have a day where I know in the back of my pocket, Thursday is a day that Fred gives Edison teacher. I'm just making this up, but Thursday is a day that Fred gives Edison teachers that day where it's just planning during prep time. So that's our proposal. Do any of the principals have any questions, or do you have any questions, Dr. Diaz, or does my team have anything else they want to add? Okay, I practice good wait time. So on the district's response, I don't want to misquote you, but I believe it just said we would like more information. So what other information would you like, Dr. Diaz?
Yeah, the district response was more information about the concerns related to this proposal. So from hearing right, it feels like what the concern is having dedicated sort of protected planning time to make sure you're not getting pulled away for a thing like an IEP or for an MTSS meeting.
Right.
In terms of where that concern comes from, you shared in a sort of scenario or an anecdote. Did PECTA gather any other data around this concern?
Did we gather specific data to this one? No, but and I know it's anecdotal data, but when we survey people, or what are some other things that you want us to advocate for? And Marnie, I don't know if you can pull this up or if you can find it, but time and time again, what kept showing up was, we need more time to plan. We need more time to plan. We need more time to plan. And this was not this wasn't this is only coming from Edison or Whittier. This was kind of across the board from all, 14 sites? From all 14 sites. So to answer your question, do I have a chart right now? No. But it was in a kind of a more like, hey, what else do you want us to bargain for? Everyone kept saying, we want more time, or less time pulled away, more time able to focus on prep time.
Jay, I have a. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Gina.
I'm sorry. I just have a question because you talked about, you realize that there's some emergencies that come up. And I guess my biggest concern would be like, if we had a parent request for a meeting or something like that, that would require on that, like, let's just say it was Thursday, right?
Right.
And the parent could only meet on the Thursday. How do you envision that piece?
So I actually have thought of this, and I thought it could be something along the lines of like we have all acknowledged that emergencies happen, but couldn't it then be that, okay, this is an emergency, this parent can only meet on Thursday, so we're going to do everything in our power then to give that teacher a different day, just like ensure that nothing else will come up just for that week, perhaps.
Okay.
So I think that's the, my thinking is right along where Ms. Millsaps is, and probably a follow-up question is, so if, I guess, how does this change what we currently have? Because I'm not aware exactly, what the practices are across the district, but what you're saying is that, across the board, from Edison all the way to Magnet, we have teachers that are saying that they need more planning time or prep time. Is that in minutes, or is that because of the blackout? Because I'm just thinking, if we make an emergency exception, then there is no, I'm just wondering how that's different than what we have right now. Because I think that a lot of us principals do the best that we can to, provide or consider, aside from the CTM, the prep time a sacred time where we, don't do that. So I'm just wondering if we're going to have an emergency situation arise on Thursdays or another emergency, how is that different from the current system that we have right now?
Well, what I think when we consider this proposition, for example, I have a large caseload of special or children who receive resource. And so there was times where I literally had an IEP week after week, sometimes 2 a week. And so I would only have 1 prep time, considering CTM, considering we just have 4 prep times a week. And so I know this is just me as an example, I know I'm not the only teacher in that situation. And so I think that is where we are coming as a union, that our prep times seem to just be kind of going and going and going, because they're, all the other demands that we have to meet. And so I think that's kind of just what our thoughts are, is that, we have IEPs, we have MTSS, we have other duties and responsibilities. And unfortunately, our prep time is when they occur.
And when we surveyed our staff, we found that 170 of the 190 people that replied wanted to have this implemented because they feel like they're being pulled from their prep periods so often that they don't have that dedicated time.
Sorry, Ms. Berkeley, can you share those numbers again?
Yeah, it was 170 out of our 190 surveyed.
And when was that survey taken?
Let me look. Everybody have that date off the top of their heads?
I'm pulling it up right now. My Google Drive is pretty chaotic, so you're gonna have to give me a second. But now that I think about it, going back to what you said, Dr. Diaz, there was a specific question on our survey. You're right. I need a minute to think.
I'm not sure if I can comment right now or not, but I think another thing is where maybe Mrs. Bernal, yes, she makes her best effort to give prep time, but it might be possible at 3 other sites that that's just not happening. And just going off of that data, it just seems that by what our educators are saying is that they're not getting enough time. So I do applaud you, Mrs. Bernal, for giving your staff that time, but from what the data is showing from the survey is that not everyone is getting the prep time that they need to provide a quality education to our students.
Vic, the survey was sent out on February 3rd.
And was the question on the survey, here's the proposal. Do you agree with the proposal, or was the question, what was the question on the survey? I guess I should ask.
The question listed the proposal and then asked, would you be in favor of this proposal? Yeah, like Karen said, yes was 172, no was 14, not applicable, so it's someone that this doesn't apply to, was 4.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else on our team have anything they would like to say about this one before, because I kind of have a couple more questions too.
I'm not on your team, Jay, but I have a question. I was wondering when, like for the LOI, like for a pre-conference or a post-conference, are the, I mean, I know how I do it at Capitol, but once again, you know, there's 14 schools. I was wondering, is there a choice for when to do the pre and post? Is that assigned to you, or do you work with the principal on that?
I can only, like you said, 14 sites. I can only speak for Mr. Fred, but for us, he kind of gives us a couple of days and we pick the times and we work from there. So we work with the principal. We're not voluntold, you might say, what time it is, but that's how it is at my site. Marnie, were you shaking your head?
It's always during our prep.
During your prep, okay. Yeah, normally it's during our prep. No, the majority of the time it's during prep time, Dirk, but it's fluid. It's a fluid situation for us.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know, from our LOI with the entire staff sometimes, and you guys know, you know, with the Monday being an early dismissal, if we have another blackout day, then that leaves us basically 3.5 days for, you know, during the LOI cycle. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking strictly of the logistics of it. It's all it's a little more challenging for us.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Give me 1 second. I'm just trying to pull something up. And I apologize if you can hear some background noise. My dogs are fighting right now, so it's not a great time. So one thing that I wanted to, you know, as a team, we kind of saw this conversation coming. So one thing we'd like to propose is potentially, instead of focusing on weekly, you know, make it where it's like, all right, I'm going to use you, Mrs. Bernal, okay? Hey, it's April 2022, and these are the 2 days that nothing can be scheduled the whole month. So instead of doing it weekly, so that problem that you talked about, Dirk, where it's, sorry, my dogs are really distracting me. The two, instead of the once a week where it would happen, it would be 2 times a month. So those 2 times a month, I think that allows for more flexibility and less of a chance of it happening every single week where it's like, oh, we want to do this, but you know what? The parent has to meet with us on this day. If we do it twice a month and it's maybe even established at the beginning of the year, then maybe that's a compromise where we're kind of still getting what we're looking for, but it's also not impacting school schedules too much. I don't know. What do you guys think about that one?
I would say that from the, you know, admin perspective, I think Gina and Dirk and every other principal that's not here today would agree that we honestly, you know, value prep time, and we do feel that, you know, adequate or optimal prep time is, you know, what's going to get us to where we need to be. I think the question for me, and it might not be the same for Dirk and Gina, for me is that if we, you know, let's just say at Garfield, we say every Wednesday it's no meeting day. But again, you know, the emergency comes up where we have a parent that can only meet on this day. Because I think, you know, I can control my schedule and, you know, the teachers control their schedule. I think what is out of our control is the parent piece. So if the parent can only meet, now we're kind of saying, okay, well, let's put aside our meet and confer agreement and let's do this instead. Where I guess I'm having a difficult time wrapping my head around, you know, what would be different than what is going on right now. I think I want to hear more. It's not that, you know, I'm saying, no, let's not do that, because I do feel that prep time again is just optimal for effective instruction. I'm just trying to figure out, how do we work with this agreement when it comes to the parent, because that's the only thing that is outside of our control.
And I get what you're saying, Sylvia. I guess the one thing I'm kind of hung up on is I'm trying to like formulate what I'm trying to say here. I guess I don't know, maybe it's just coming from the teacher perspective, but on my end, and I'm speaking for myself here, I never feel like I have enough time. And 174 people out of 197, whatever it was, I teach reading, they agree with me. And I already know it's like, yes, I get it. When you put that cheese in front of someone and say like, ooh, doesn't this sound great? Like they're more likely to say yes instead of like getting it out of them. But those numbers are huge. And obviously, I think all staff, all principals have best intentions, but obviously teachers still feel like they're not getting enough time. And I don't think it's anything against you or against Dirk or against Gina or against any principal. I just think this is how people feel. And whether or not it's legitimate, well, that's not even true. It is legitimate because that many people said it, right? So I get your point about the parents. I totally do. But I feel like if we were to find a middle ground here where we had just 2 days where it was like, hey, these 2 days, I guarantee you that, I mean, nothing's a guarantee, right? But we are going to work the best we can to make these 2 days blackout days, then I think that's something that we all would agree is a win.
I have a question as well. I don't know if it's possible or if this even exists, but do we have any data about like parent meetings, like how often those are occurring, the times that they're occurring, the times that parents are requesting most often? Because in my personal experience, which is again anecdotal, parents want to meet before school and after school because they work.
Mm-hmm. And I would also say the pandemic has changed it a little bit, where a lot, just for me, again, I'm going to stop saying it's anecdotal, but I'm going to, but with Class Dojo and with communicating on email, it seems like a lot more parent comms have been happening on technology, where someone might be more able to hop on a Zoom call or on a phone call after contracted hours. But that's just, again, purely anecdotal. So
I think it's a wonderful question, Martin. I'm sorry. I think that's a wonderful question, Mark. So I was going to ask the same sort of question. Is there any data to your point, Ms. Antune, in terms of how often it is that you find yourself with these weeks, right, where you do have a couple IEP meetings? Is there an ebb and flow to it as well? I know that in the time I spent as a high school and middle school teacher, the beginning and the end of a marking period tended to be more the busier time to have to do end of quarter assessments that required an extra meeting that we had to attend, or to do an MTSS meeting, or, we all know that discipline sort of spikes right before breaks. And so you're going to have those sort of things. So has PECTA collected any data from its members in terms of that ebb and flow, or how often this happens? Because it feels like if the concern is, I need more prep time, we would want to make sure that the proposal actually drives towards that. And so so is the concern, I need more prep time, or is the concern my prep time keeps getting canceled? And whether or not that data has been collected.
So we don't have any formal data on that, Dr. Diaz, but what we do have are several comments, because we did leave open space in our survey for members to fill out like any additional comments. And there were quite a few that I think highlighted that the issue isn't that we don't have prep time. The issue is that it is getting canceled, or it's getting taken up by all of these different meetings.
And to your point, Dr. Diaz, I get what you're saying with that original question, but the meet and confer agreement clearly states that prep time can be used for X, Y, and Z. So we figured that this was a perfect middle ground of not changing that original language, but adding like a little amendment to it where it still allows for some teachers to get that actual uninterrupted prep time.
And I do want to point out, like, I know right now, I think we're feeling the heat of our prep time being taken a lot more because, and I know this is occurring at Lowell, is that we don't have our classrooms during prep time. And I think that is it could potentially making us feel more overwhelmed that we don't have our setups and things like that. But I mean, I know in the past, like, this is something that we've all felt. But I do want to just consider that, like, as we approach this proposal, that as of right now, we really don't feel like we're getting our adequate prep time because of the current situation.
And so just for the record, our proposal is still the same, but we are willing to accommodate and make it twice a month. That's like the official re-proposal, it's not a counter proposal, whatever it is. That's where we're at. Is that something that we'd be willing to do? Do the principals have any other clarifying questions or kind of comments about this? Because I really appreciate your voice in the room for this conversation, because you're the ones that are impacted. Well, you know what I mean? You're the ones that have to figure out this schedule. So.
No, and I hate to take up the floor, guys, so you can stop me if you want, but I think I keep going back to the parent piece because I feel that within our control, and I know that a lot of us have good systems in place where, for example, CTMs for third grade happen every day of the week on this same day. So we can control that because that's in our master calendar. So if you're talking about IEP meetings and parent meetings, I'm just wondering if that's, a conversation that we would need to have with our special education team at the beginning of the year and, make sure that they understand that, they cannot overtax you with so many IEP meetings, maybe put a cap on that. But the only thing that's outside of our control is that parent piece. If this parent, or let's just say we had an emergency discipline situation and we have to meet with this parent, because it's urgent that we take care of the problem and provide some interventions for the kiddo. And it just happens to land on that day. I think timeliness is key, in these crucial situations. So that's, I think that's the only thing that I would ask for you to consider and then come back with, or I don't know how this works. I'm sorry, this is my first year. I don't even know if that's even within my control to say, come back and tell me about this. But that's what I'm wondering about. What would this look like, in those situations?
And to build off that for what Ms. Bernal's saying, I'm wondering if 2 days per month still creates a similar dynamic that once a week night. Even though it sounds like less and it feels like less, you still may have the same constraints when it comes to something like an emergency or a situation that comes up. So I'm not sure that the 2 days per month really drives it into a position that makes it I suppose sort of more manageable.
Oh, go ahead, Dirk. Go ahead.
I was just going to build on that. I'm looking at the calendar and like October, November, December, obviously we have like a week in each one. And so that really limits like the amount of days that are available to even have meetings on that. There's a lot of orange and yellow on this calendar of days off. And so for me, I like to, plan out the meetings and everything. Maybe we just need to, as a school, like try to plan a little bit better with the meetings, But I kind of agree with Vic on, 2 days, that's good. But if you have a month with 15, school days, and we're doing 2, that really kind of limits like options for scheduling things.
And so that being said, if I may ask a question, I think Mrs. Bernal, Mr. Olmsted, Ms. Millsaps have brought up a very genuine question here in terms of like a parent meeting or a discipline meeting that would come up. for the PECTA members in the room, when you think you have a prep on a Tuesday and it's taken from you, or you lose it to something, what is it that you would tend to lose it to? Because I think your CTMs are regularly scheduled. So what are the other, essentially you mentioned like an IEP meeting, so IEP meetings or parent meetings, but are there other things that you're losing that to? Because one of my concerns is also when it comes to sub coverage. If we have 12% absences on a Friday, we don't have the depth in a sub pool to cover 12% absences on a Friday. And so it's another, I remember losing my prep a lot to not having enough subs, particularly in the fourth quarter when the sub budget ran out. But are there other instances where, again, where you feel you're losing your prep?
So the ones you mentioned emergency parent meetings, right? Discipline meetings. I would say LOIs. LOIs are kind of scheduled ahead of time. I'm trying to think. Honestly, the root of this stems from the fact it's not even it's not the emergency things we're worried about. It's the fact that a lot of weeks it's like there's an IEP on Tuesday, Wednesday. There's this on Thursday. There's this on So I get your point, Dr. Diaz, but kind of going back to Dirk's point too. Maybe schools do need to do a better job of. And I'm not, not critiquing, but he said it, so I'm going to go off of it. Better job of scheduling, right? Because it seems like there seems to be some traffic jams, especially at some parts of the month or some parts of the year. Sorry, where these traffic jams happen, and we get it. We're teachers, we're busy, we have a lot of stuff to do, but at the same time, it would be nice to have some prep time. That's what this all stems from, and 175 people said it, and we feel passionate about it, and that's why we're kind of sticking to our guns on this one, because to us, having that time is important. So I guess our next step with this one is, I honestly don't know what our next step is with this one, because it sounds, I'm just going to be honest, it sounds like you're not very interested in this one. And if I don't know where to go, because we could set the deadline at 5 o'clock to do something here, but
yeah, yes, let's align intentions here, because it's a very interesting choice of words. I'm not sure if you did this on purpose, so we're not interested in it. I think what you're hearing from the three principals is there is an interest.
Right. Yeah.
The question is just what's the best option. Right. To get us towards that shared interest. You're hearing principals say, we also value your prep time.
Right.
We know you do your best work when you're prepared.
Right.
And we know that what a critical piece that is.
Right.
Obviously, PECTA has that same interest. You say we want our prep time. And so that's what I'm trying to wrap my mind around. Well, is it that you have the prep time and you're losing it? Or is it that the time doesn't exist in the first place? I know we have the 225 minutes, right? But I'm just trying to understand what the actual reality is in terms of saying, why isn't that 225-minute agreement sufficient? So I think we have an alignment of interests. Where we're divergent right now is in the option of a blackout day.
Yeah.
It feels as though, to Ms. Bernal's point, that actually might not get you any closer to having protected time. We may find out that there's teachers who have this happen so rarely that it might actually incentivize even more losing your preps, because those aren't blackout days. In the same sense that when you see districts implement blackout days on attendance, get ready for your attendance to start spiking on the non-blackout days in terms of the days that people would actually take off. Blackout days for attendance have an adverse impact on overall attendance. And I think there might be some concern with that in terms of a weekly or a bi-monthly proposal for that. I think to Mr. Olmsted's point, the question is, what other options do we have in terms of administrators and educators in ensuring that prep time is protected? And that's why I'm asking how much of it is an emergency versus a sort of schedule thing. It would be interesting. I'm remembering working in a restaurant where you have a schedule that's there in terms of the breakfast shift, the lunch shift, and the dinner shift. it would be interesting to track for a couple of months or even just a couple of weeks. Here were your 5 prep periods. These are the ones that were promised to you at the beginning of a month. How many of them did you actually keep at the end of that month? That would be interesting data to collect then to really find solutions that are going to make sure they address the mutual interest of making sure prep time is protected.
I have a clarifying question. Sorry, I just got home, so my video's off. Do any of you know how many hours teachers are spending right now to plan and grade in total? And furthermore, do we have the adequate math to show that the hours they need to spend planning and grading, does that match with the prep time we are given?
Can I answer that, Vic? I honestly think it varies. You know, there are teachers that spend, I would say, endless hours. I have a kindergarten team that spends 2 hours every other day. So that's a total of 6 hours in the evening from 6 to 8. Believe it or not, I discourage it all the time and it happens, but I understand what they say, you know, that they need it, they want to be prepared, so they get compensated for that time. But it just depends. I mean, it's a very difficult question, but I know that as a teacher, I used to do that, the same thing. I used to plan after hours and grade after hours. So it's a lot more than the 45 minutes that you all get for prep time. But unfortunately, I think Miss Merkley, you are our special area teacher, right? She will tell you that anything, a special area block, anything longer than 50 minutes, 55 minutes is probably going to create a lot of, you know, an overload for you all, because then you will have to, you know, be seeing a lot more classes and inconsistently, because I at least at Garfield, we couldn't fit all of the grade levels, you know, if we went longer than 45 minutes. So right now, that's what we're doing, because the special area teachers also have the concern that since they're transitioning from one grade to another, they need that cleanup and prep time in between. So we're trying to honor everything, you know, we're trying to balance the teacher prep, but also the special areas team, you know, they have their own, you know, things that they have to deal with. And I would say that there is not enough prep time right now in the current schedule. And in the dream world, I would say if we could stretch that 45 minutes to probably double, it would be, you know, that would be dream. But I mean, aside from being willing to put in some additional time at the end of the day with your team, and then, you know, getting compensated for that at the schools that, you know, have those funds, I would say that I don't think that's within our control.
I just really quickly wanted to say thank you to all of the principals for bringing a different perspective to it than obviously what we have as classroom teachers. And it sounds to me right now like we're all kind of at an impasse with this, because we neither one of us or neither team can really I guess neither team can come to an agreement at this point. And just in the interest of time and everything, I would like to move to table this for a later discussion, and maybe we can regroup and figure out a better way to approach it. At the end, maybe we can talk about what would be necessary for us to kind of come more prepared next time with something that we could maybe start as a jumping off point. But I just wanted to see if that would be something that would be okay with everybody.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, we can look at doing that. I do want to make sure that we sort of summarize where we're at, though, so we don't lose the momentum of the conversation. But I'm also seeing, let's say Ms. Millsaps has something that she wants to add.
I do. Just thinking about the loss of prep time is even wondering what is the main reason for the loss of prep time. So like I know there was mentioned that IEP meetings, right? So if we could even find the source of what's pulling from that prep time, that could also help us make decisions when we're creating a schedule. And planning ahead of time at the beginning of the year, and maybe setting, you know, some, like what Mr. Olmsted was saying, some like criteria for the schedule, and even creating days that were devoted, if you would, to those reasons, and then also knowing that we would have to be flexible with that. So just something that I wanted to add, that I was thinking of, why is this prep time being pulled? Because I know that we try very, very hard not to take any of those times.
Yeah, and I think, Ms. Burrs, I don't know that we're at an impasse. I think actually we're really aligned in terms of like I said, the interest. The question is just what's the best option. And so, whereas the option right now is divergent, I don't think that the interest is at all. And I think this has been a really helpful way for us to get on the same page with that. In terms of tabling this as an item, I want to, make sure that's shared on both sides, so that now what we can do is take advantage of time between meetings to think about, well, what other options are out there that would allow us, I think, to do a couple of things. One thing I really always believe in is you measure what matters. And right now, nobody's measuring this. So if it matters, let's start measuring it. And what are the different data points? What are the different data sets we can start collecting to answer some of these root questions? And then based on that, what are some other options that, again, we may be able to come up with? So yes, we can definitely table them, being very mindful of time. But I want to make sure that we, like I said, I think we actually have a lot of momentum here in terms of finding something that is going to drive at the mutual interest of making sure teachers have as much prep time as possible, while also recognizing the proposal is not to add prep time, it's to protect prep time.
And Dr. Diaz, I'm just thinking, actually, you know what? No, we'll table it. We'll table it and we'll bring it up next time. It's totally fine. So Marnie, were you going on to the next one, or do you want me to do it? Sorry, I lost my place.
I thought we were going to have Chico.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That one.
Okay, good. So we're going to throw it now to our vice president, Mr. Robinson, who kind of came up with his idea. I'm not going to say it wasn't out of nowhere, but he kind of presented it one day, and we thought it was really interesting, and we wanted to add it to our BE Confer proposals. And so instead of kind of speaking the wordage to him, we wanted him to speak the wordage to all of us. So go ahead, Brother Chico, the floor is yours. I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you so much. And first of all, I want to thank the district team for allowing me to be a last minute member from the pen, Dr. Diaz. And thank you to the team for hearing me out in something that I think will be very beneficial to both educators, to our district, and to our board. And that is communication, all right? So PECTA proposes that an active member is designated as a representative to the school board during public meetings. And the reasoning is often PECTA is, we're referenced in committee members, creators of data, and having a particular stance or role in topics that are covered in the school board agenda. And having the voice of over 50% of the teachers who are members. So we would, like our designee to be an active voice, not only of PECTA membership, but over a 50% of the teacher workforce in our district. Now the cost would be zero. And the benefits would help. I'm sorry, I'm not following the slides. But the benefits would help all during meetings where more decisions are made. Now, I know we have time during public comments, and that's a great method for the community to be heard, and for, I know the president is given 10 minutes or so to make a statement. But here's the issue with that. The issue with that is that there's no communication. As you guys know, in board meetings, the board will listen but not respond. That's not communication. What this would do is it would provide an open dialogue that's not afforded by our community comments. And from a personal note, I often believe, like we're doing now, communication is what moves us forward. Communication and representation is what's needed to make Phoenix L the best district in the Central Phoenix area, if not the state of Arizona. So I humbly request that that you accept this proposition of allowing a PECTA representation that does not vote. It's not part of the executive board. What we are there for is just to provide the data that we've collected. District will no longer have to speak for PECTA. They won't have to worry about whether they're providing the correct data or they're providing the correct details. We'll have our own representation to be able to share that. And of course, we will continue to share everything we create like we do now with district. So that is my proposal.
And just to clarify, so some districts that currently do this right now or have something similar to this, Roosevelt. So in Roosevelt, the president gives a report at the board meeting on the efforts of the local and things going on with the local association. Cartwright has a board meeting representative. Paradise Valley is a little different. They more just highlight work of ESP workers, which should definitely happen. That's important. Tempe L has a nameplate for their board meeting designee. So this is not something that is new in the state. And like Chico said, we want to be able to provide a voice in the room other than public comment, where if a board member or a cabinet member has a clarifying question, we can be there to respond. This is not something, we're not asking for a vote on the board. We're not asking to join executive session. I think that's illegal. We just want to have our voice in the room. And I'll never forget when Dr. Weeks, what was it, 2 years ago, whenever we had the last convocation, said like, educator voice is important in this district. And what better way to showcase that than having union representation that represents all of the certified staff at the meetings. So.
Any questions?
Thank you. That was very helpful. In administration's response that was sent at the beginning of Meet and Confer, you named some of the different venues that the association currently has in terms of participating in governing board meetings. I believe what the proposal here is you're looking for administration's support in support of this idea.
Correct.
And so, so in terms of administration, we know you already have those venues. We support those venues. We encourage those venues. And we support the continued use of those venues.
Okay. Does anyone else on our team have any follow-up comments or questions about? Go ahead, Felina.
I'm just asking, I'm just thinking, because this would be a really great way to protect teachers who are afraid of speaking out, not because we have our own personal fears, but often in having to include our name and school site and PECTA membership, we often are put on the spot and face action when we return to our school site. So in having a representative there being able to speak on our behalf, it would actually amplify our voices, especially if we're worried about the reaction and atmosphere we have on our school sites.
This could also potentially speed up board meetings. As you know, I mean, they can last for hours at times. And, again, we are individuals, but we are also, PECTA members are a unified voice. So it could, at times, stop 20, 25 public comments of the same topic. I think it would make, like Ms. Rodriguez said, Felina, said, it would make a lot of those who are intimidated by using their voice by having that representation. Their representation is a wonderful thing to have. District has representation, the community through public comments does, but dialogue is what we are lacking when it comes to being able to use, again, I'll go back to what we were talking about, the committee members, the data that we use and is used in public meetings.
I would like to add that there was an additional, we're trying to remember the exact date of that governing board session, but it regarded the simultaneous learning and I believe also return to school, where the governing board directly asked the presenters what PECTA had thought, and they were unable to provide a response aside from our comments. So that would have been an example that happened this year that would have actually been super helpful when it comes to having critical dialogue, because if we're pursuing equity, that also means having a voice for everyone.
And Dr. Diaz, I'm just curious why you don't support, why administration wouldn't support this proposal, and why you're just supporting the way it currently is.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, let me go back to something that was said. You mentioned retaliation. I will remind PECTA that there is a no retaliation policy, and that was in our agreement in 1819 as well as 1920. To date, no claims of retaliation have been received by this office. And so if there is a claim of retaliation, that should be filed in the Human Resources Office. And like I said, we haven't had any of this.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I want to make sure that we're remembering the past agreement.
I do have a question. How does this school policy define retaliation? Because I know that there's very limited definitions to that. So some ongoing issues on campuses might not necessarily apply or be able to be claimed, which is what we see a lot with a lot of workplace environments.
And to add to that, I don't think you're aware that
Diana, I couldn't hear you there. Can you say that again?
Oh, I said, I'm not sure if teachers are even aware that they have the capability of doing that.
Yeah, to answer Ms. Rodriguez's question, policies are typically broad and open to interpretation. And so there is no definition of what constitutes or does not constitute retaliation. But that process, to your point, Ms. Entune, does start with filing a claim in Human Resources. It's a policy it's been in the PECTA Meet and Confer agreement for, I believe, now 2 years. And so you can definitely reference it from there.
Going back to the scenario I mentioned, the same reason we don't see in the court of law, we don't see certain things reported is because of fear of further aggravation, and honestly just not having the mental capacity to just want to deal with these issues. So with that lack of retaliation claims, I definitely feel like there's definitely something to be said when there aren't any. It could be related to either people aren't familiar with the process, or we know the process will get nowhere. So that's also something to consider when we see these absences of claims.
Well, let me be clear. It's not that we've seen no retaliation claims. We've seen no retaliation claims based on association membership or on the concern of voicing a concern in a public meeting like governing board.
If it's okay with you guys, I'd like to go back to that question that I asked Dr. Diaz about why the district doesn't support the plan. Sorry, not support the plan. You know what I'm saying. Why they're more in favor of keeping it as is. That's probably more fair stated.
It's just something the administration wouldn't have the fullest interest in at this time. I know we got in this last year about the limited times that the administration tells the governing board what to do. The administration certainly recommends to the governing board what to do, but at the end of the day, the governing board is its own entity. The governing board makes its own decisions.
Right. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions about this one? Yeah, go ahead, Chico.
Not a question, but a statement here. One of the things that we've seen all year in through our data collecting, and again, anecdotal, but we can definitely look it up, is that teachers feel that their voice is not being heard. By not moving forward with this is sticking to the status quo. We're not addressing the concerns of over 50% of the teachers who are union members. And this board has made comments about wanting to be more progressive by including the voice of the community, by including the voice of the student, which I also believe should be on the board. But and lastly, the voice of the educator. This is a chance for everyone here to take that step forward in having a voice that represents the educators using their own voice.
So I just want to clear things up a little bit, Dr. Diaz. So just to confirm, would it be fair to say that, support or not support, regardless, the district does not right now feel comfortable recommending this to the board? Would that be fair to say?
Yes. In terms of supporting teacher voice, I think our participation in this process in of itself reflects that. But in terms of this proposal, again, I can't speak for the governing board. Administration supports the continued use of existing data.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So let's, if it's okay with everyone, we'll move on to scheduling for next week or any deadlines we need to make. Dr. Diaz, do you have any, sorry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot with this one, but are there any updates to Classroom Site Fund or anything that you feel like we'd be able to share? Well, if you want to share it right now, I'm always down for some good news, but for the next meeting, or where do we want to go with that?
Yeah, there are not, but I am mindful that we said if we bring something up, we want to make sure that we can figure that out in 2 meetings. And so I believe our next meeting would be the last one for that. And so it's definitely on my list of priorities for the week to get the most current information we can on the Classroom Site Fund budget so that we can start looking at different models of compensation that could be derived from that. Again, for folks, the good news is that the Classroom Site Fund is going to be much larger than we thought it was going to be when we did all the Prop 301 planning. I think it was 84% of teachers voted and approved the Prop 301 plan with the budget picture we had then. And so now with this different budget picture, obviously we want to revisit that. So I'll have an update Thursday at 5, one way or the other. If I have an update with specific numbers, that's great. We can get the ball rolling on that and save some time in the meeting. But if I have no update, I'll make sure to update on that as well.
Okay.
And I believe just to keep straight sort of the process, this is in relation to item 2, which last week was tabled.
Correct. So I think there'll be something, well, how about, we'll get you the agenda by Thursday at 5 again. And we can try to get some more information from there. Is there anything else that you think we need to be pressing on the proposals? We have time to kind of figure it out still.
Right. And I'm just flipping through different notes here, so excuse me for a moment. But I'm trying to remember, what our agreement was at the beginning. We said we wanted to resolve issues within 2 meetings of it being agendized. Is that from when it would first appeared on the agenda, or is that from when we would have tabled it? Because in terms of when it would have first appeared on the agenda, I actually think today would be the second meeting for proposal 2.
Right.
Dr. Diaz, I think the intention behind that was from when it was tabled.
Okay. Good, because I want us to be in a position to figure that out. It's certainly good news. And so we want to, push this forward as we can. But good to know that we'll have a little bit of flexibility with that. So I'm just going through items right now. So we have we've tabled item 2 so that we can have an update on that. We've tabled item 5. If we have an update on that, I'll make sure that we send that before Thursday at 5 as well.
Okay.
Item 6 is we sent you an update on Thursday at 5. And so I think that's another one that's still out there.
Okay.
And then we have now agreed on 11.
And 7, correct? 7 we agree, or whichever one the
yes.
7. Okay.
The evaluations committee. We still have to hammer out that language, but yes, we have general agreement on item 7 and then we're still awaiting the time and agenda to discuss items 1, 3, 4, 8, 10, and 12.
Right, and just for the people at home, we were planning on doing number 8. It got pushed back. So look forward to but that one will probably be on the agenda next week. And so we'll get you that. We will commit to getting you the agenda at Thursday at 5. And then if there's more information in regards to proposal 5, you will give that to us on Thursday at 5 as well, correct?
Correct. And then I'd say for PECTA, if there's another option in proposal 5 from our conversation today, feel free to send that to us Thursday at 5 as well. So that we can just take advantage of the time between meetings to keep the meetings moving along.
100%. Okay, so yep, I think we got that all. So we'll go ahead and call it at 5:21. I'm going to stop the recording once I get to